what's happening out there. And what's happening out there is an insurgency against the very idea of a pan-European set of solutions for what are pan-European problems. And that is connected to my question. If I had arrived here by a time, we no longer have the Jacques Delors kind of European Commission. We no longer have the optimism that the European Union was getting.
You mean Brexit? Brexit.
Absolutely. Look, speaking of emotions, if you really want to understand Brexit, just go and watch a Ken Loach movie. I mean, the facts and figures may help.
Come on, kid. Come on, then. Come on, kid.
But you really do not understand the hard economic and social reality that gives rise to outcomes like Brexit, like, you know, a good movie. Or if you really want to understand the Great Depression, before you read Keynes, read John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath. And if you do that, then you will understand that in a seat somewhere in some constituency where Labour used to represent people, and after the years of Blair and Brown, it made absolutely no difference.
Right, I think you're dead. Don't give me cobblers, boss, Casper. Don't take the best underpants off. No, wait a minute. Casper took him in the private showing.
Whether they elected a Labour member or a Tory member to their lives, suddenly they had an opportunity to annoy the establishment. Lead with ideas, lead with moderate proposals of how the world could be different tomorrow morning, yeah? Nothing pie in the sky. And if the establishment says no, disobey, just go into a campaign of civil disobedience, or in my case, when I was a minister, governmental disobedience, say no to Schäuble, for instance. Yeah? And they would look at me and they liked everything I said. But you know what? They thought in their minds, they didn't tell me because they were very nice to me, but I'm sure that this is what they thought. That's all very nice. But if we vote for Remain, nothing is going to change.
Well, that was right, wasn't it?
They're completely right. Because we folks, you know, we speak to audiences like this one and like the ones in Leeds and York and so on and so forth. But these people have to live with a particularly brutish and nasty...
I'll get you something, Casper. Okay. Is that it now, Casper, lad? Oh, shit me, man. Right, Casper, end of those.
Insurgency that has taken over government some decades ago and treats them like fodder. And we are too useless politically, as the left, as the progressives, to threaten the Tory establishment and to have any chance of being elected. And as long as we remain unelectable, they will only have the opportunity of rubbing the face of the establishment into some dirt by voting for Brexit. So I completely understand it. And as Churchill said, the demonization of those who try to be agents, historical agents, by voting for Brexit is a major sinister sin on behalf of people that like to call themselves progressives.
They just come back from Biafra. Hold it up, Casper. Hold it up. That's it. Roll them down, Casper. Either do there. Do lot. Come on, get changed. Wasted enough time already. Give you a sample of my footballing skills. A rare delight.
The problem with the Labour Party is that you have this incredible gap between the parliamentary Labour Party and the supporters of the Labour Party. So democracy means that every seat should be contested from scratch within the Labour Party. There should be in terms of the global scene.
Yeah.
My great fear is that Trump will be successful for about a year. His New Deal kind of economic policy of boosting infrastructure spending and supporting minimum wages. You know, the first people that he saw after he became president was the trades union leaders.
I wrote about this only this morning.
Yeah? Yeah. I spoke to one of them.
Yeah.
And he was actually overwhelmed by the...
Out of doors, she can be called greater distances by means of crayons. A long cord which is attached to the hawk to prevent her escaping. With hook she will not attempt to fly away.
Distancia, por favor. Distancia. Hey!
Distancia. Distancia. Hey!
Back then, it sounds like it was yesterday, but nevertheless, it's not yesterday. Because of when we started in the first few meetings we had in Germany, in France, in Spain, and so on and so forth, the question that people asked us when they wanted to be critical of Hamburg, I get a different question. Is Europe worth saving? They're not scrutinizing our plan to save Europe. They're whether the motivation is the right one. Now, as staunch Europeanists, we are intrigued, we are upset, and we are motivated by a denial, an insurgency, and a fallacy. The denial is that of the establishment. The business as usual kind of communiques that you get from the Eurogroup. Achieve. It is important that we do not demonize those who follow the Nationalist International. It is important that we treat them with the respect that they deserve. When I go to the north of England, our countries back. When I go to Leeds in northern England and people say to me after Brexit, we got our country back, we don't care what it means in terms of lost trade, in terms of losing the and then there is, I'll come back to that, how do you combine this with saving Europe? For instance, in the context of climate change, is that, as previous speakers have said, quite correctly, that there's nothing the Netherlands can do to combat climate change. There's nothing Greece can do. The problem with banks, the banking crisis. The problem with low investment. Do you realize that we have the lowest level of investment since 1950 throughout Europe relative to national income and relative to savings? The savings investment gap in Europe is the largest it has been since the creation of the European Union. This is a major failure. We have idle wealth, which is responsible for the gradual disintegration of Europe, is the solution. We need an alternative blueprint of that which could happen not in some future Europe, which we do not have the political capacity to bring about as long as the economic crisis and the fragmentation of societies and of the European social economic model under the surface of the Eurozone and the European Union, and they are tearing our union apart, creating massive pain everywhere. The question is, how do you appeal to people about a document like the European New Deal, which is our answer, our attempted answer? At DM, when we inaugurated DM, we decided not to go out there and to say to people, come, look, give us your money, donate, come and become members, we will run for elections, you vote for us. When we're in power, then we will have some ideas as to what we should do. No, we're doing it exactly the opposite. This is not the venue for me to provide you with a presentation of the technicalities of it. There is a 20-page summary. So here is something we could do tomorrow morning, and then in a year's time we should do something else to build up a legislative assembly, a constitutional assembly, to replace all the EU treaties by means of a functioning democratic constitution. The way, however, to give substance, energy, and power to an agenda, an anti-TINA agenda like the European New Deal, has to pass through the It's very difficult for progressives like me to come up with such a succinct statement as to why they should not vote for Brexit. I tried. I campaigned all over Britain against Brexit. But this simplicity, the foreigner, the refugee, these hearts and minds are the hearts and minds that we need to impress. Now, the greatest cost of the euro crisis, the costs of bailing them out onto the shoulders of the weakest taxpayers and the weakest citizens throughout Europe. The first thing that happened, just like in the 1930s, was finger pointing. At night. Again, I'm going to borrow a metaphor from economy today. It is not sustainable in the Eurozone as it is. And it is less sustainable today than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Not just despite of QE, but because of QE. Imagine a different QE, energy in the Green Union, to fund the Green Union, the Green Energy Union, you could say, by means of EIB bonds that the EIB has been now issuing for a very long time. It will have to issue a lot of them. And Mario Draghi is sitting there next to him announcing that the ECB will be standing by in the secondary money markets to ensure that these EIB, even those, the summary with which we began, to join DM's debate in the forum, in the different places where we're going to be holding those debates. 25th of March, Rome. There will be similar events in Greece, in Britain, in Paris, before the election, the presidential election there. Why are we doing all this? There are genuine concerns in this country about genuine social and economic problems that we need to address. You know, people say to me, oh, the problem in Europe is that there's not sufficient solidarity with Greece and with the periphery, north-south and so on. I disagree. By the way, I don't like the word solidarity anymore. We've had too much of it. Of addressing one another. I would like when Dutch people come to Greece to come with a sense of solidarity towards Greece, in exactly the same way that when the Dutch and the Greeks go to Germany, that we show solidarity towards the Germans. Because they need it. Because we are all in a crisis which is common. We have to understand that. If you start speaking the language of a common set of problems with different manifestations that require a common sense of solutions, then you can start speaking into people's hearts and minds. When you address their concerns, not your needs, this is a paraphrasing of Adam Smith, then you have a chance of building alliances. When you get out of your own skin and out of your own sense of what interests you, there is a possibility of creating a possibility of a banking collapse. That concerns society. And the way we manage money, the way we manage public debt, the way that we manage investment, these are political decisions, and any attempt to depoliticize them, which is what the European Union has been doing, and neoliberalism has been doing since the 1970s, any attempt to depoliticize these decisions that are highly political and uniquely political leads to both bad economics and toxic politics. Wilders, Le Pen, and so on and so forth. So there is a difference between the ugly and the beautiful, but it cannot be reduced to a set of equations to be allowed, to be given, to be passed on to a technocrat who is going to find the solution on behalf of society. Were also collapsing, and then we had all sorts of fluctuations and volatility. And in 1978, the EMS with Giscard and Helmut Schmidt and so on. Now, the Werner Report was the first attempt to create a monetary union. It was clear that they were going to do this before a political union and fiscal union. And the notion behind the Werner Report was that which in the end we will be forced to follow up with the political union. And Caldor's argument back then in 1971 was don't do it. Because even though I understand your intentions, they're very good intentions, if you create a monetary union, you are creating the seeds of a major financial and capital flow crisis. So what the European New Deal document is, and you will see that there is a whole chapter on this, on how to solidify, how to overcome the Caldor warning. Caldor was right, but now we've made a mistake. We create the monetary union. All those mechanisms that the United States have, which we don't have, but simulate them. That's why we need to simulate them, because we don't have them. So our proposals about how to shore up the Eurozone, what to do in terms of private debt, public debt, and so on, are tuned into precisely this kind of modus vivendi. You've simply handed over the keys. Now that is important. You may say, well, we don't care about this in the Netherlands because we don't have this problem. No, you do. Because when you are a surplus country and you have 11% current account surplus, effectively what you're doing is you are entrusting your savings, your surplus, to the deficit areas. So your future, your pension funds, your children will depend on the capacity of the Greeks and the Portuguese and the Spaniards and so on, prospects, constant migration to London, to Berlin, to New York, to Latin America, and so on and so forth. And then your subsidiarity is going to be completely and utterly undermined. So what Diem is saying is this: because we agree that we should have the maximum amount of national sovereignty in our parliaments and our governments, the maximum amount of power within our local councils and our regional councils in countries that have regional councils. Because of that, we need realizing problems that can only be solved, like climate change, at the global level, at the European level, in order to maximize the degrees of freedom of national, regional, and municipal